Proffessors is brought to you by TrollandToad.com, MTGMintCard.com, CardHorder.com, and Jiffy's Photo and Baseball Cards. Shards of Alara is here and known, and it looks extremely tasty, so have your mouse on the order button at TrollandToad.com, MTGMintCard.com, and CardHorder.com, or support the show and head on down to Jiffy's Photo and Baseball Cards today. Hello everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Planeswalking with the Professors. This week the Conflux spoilers are here in full force with 68 cards and moving up as of when I write this. So let's draw. So among white cards, we'll be taking a look at Lapse of Certainty, Path to Exile, Wall of Reverence, Martial Coup, and Scepter of Dominance. First, in Memory Lapse, or Lapse of Certainty, we see one of the only white cards with the word counter on it, aside from Mana Tithe, and, well, I can't say I like it. I mean, yes, it establishes the specific control that white cards were meant to do and sets up an annoying blockade for an opponent, much like Resounding Silence or Wrath of God. However, it doesn't actually get you closer to victory. Mike Flores determined that in a point-counter-point war, all you had to do was let your opponent do whatever they wanted to do, as long as it didn't get you any closer to losing, or them any closer to winning. Lapse of Certainty reverses this, and lets you do what you want to do, and not actually get you 3 mana worth of a card closer to victory. And B, this card still has a majorly conditional clause, which states that the card has to be on the stack and not already in play. Sorta awkward. However, we do see a very important ability without a clause in the form of Path to Exile. Against 5-color control, there will be no defense. Bottom stacking a Cloud Thresher or an Una just ends the game for them, save if they happen to drop a Cruel Ultimatum next turn or get in with a dorky 2-2 Drifter while condemning everything you own or Bant Charming all your instant spells. Also, this card fills out its suggestive purposes in Vintage as the player at the other side of the table scratches their head saying, "What's a basic lands?" Forces that 5-color control player to play just one more basic land, an island of course, to search out or allow a player in Limited to swing with their Hellkite Overlord and Dragon Fodder token, then Path to Exile the Dragon Fodder token, hit Domain, slam down a Might of Alara, and hit for 13 and the win. Yes! Sure, the chances of that happening are slim, but the utility of this card will be high, and I thank the Magic designers it is uncommon. Next up is Martial Coup. Sure, it's not exactly a decree of justice that got you 4/4 angels or cycled at instant speed, but it does work with what I believe to be the future blue-white control deck that says, Wrath for 7 with 3 mana open to counter whatever you play next turn having countered everything you'd played before, and say go. Next up is, yes, I know, green-white life gain is still not a viable archetype, but Andrew apparently doesn't, and has moved on to his next ingenious Toxic Drink of a White enchantment/life gain deck that splashes blue and green for Rock's Warmonk. It starts by holding up the game with things in the future standard like Lapse of Certainty, Oblivion Ring, Path to Exile, Wrath of God, and Sigil of the Empty Throne. Yes, you heard that right, that enchantment that says whenever you play an enchantment, put a 4/4 Flying Angel into play. It then continues the pestering annoyance with Idyllic Tutor, Beacon of Immortality, and assuming the opponent hasn't halted in their tracks and said WTF, at which point you would expect to get a message from the system that says, System, Session Lost. But if you don't, you then have the ability to cast Windburst Raptor. Yes! Okay, well, maybe that wasn't as crazy as what I've got next, but it did just seem a little, well, odd. However, my next suggestion for the new standard is Scepter of Dominance. Yes, you heard that right. While it's not just the best Scepter in Limited, it also has some effect in the blue-white-black Esper deck I have planned. It uses no less than 4 Master of Ethereums, 4 Ethereum Sculptors, and 4 Sculpting Steel. And attacking with 2 5/5s on turn 4 or a Salvage Titan on turn 3, kinda good. On to the blue cards that I don't see very much. Maybe it's just me. Okay, it is just me. But personally, having a deck of cards that draw more cards, kinda bland. And quite frankly, it would appear as if that's exactly what the unnecessarily rare Scepter of Insight and reprinted Worldly Council are doing. However, leaning towards Esper once again, I will give a shout out to Esper Zoa, because you know when a card says at the beginning of your upkeep and is a 4/3 artifact creature with flying to boot, it can always be abused. On to black, I once again only see one card that I can actually get excited over, and that is Nixathid. For a while, this card has needed some sort of benefit in Standard since its loss of the Rack and Termagoyf, and this card finally gives it some. And sure, maybe your aggro opponent will just drop the Chameleon Colossus they just drew and kill you, but discard, like Mill, was always a tier 1.5 deck that always had its place somewhere, but not like Life Gain. In red, we see three very, very important cards. Banefire, a 5-color control, and possibly red deck win players' favorite cards, and some very important sideboard tech in the form of Volcanic Fallout that is an instant to boot. It's pretty clear that Wizards intended the minute they saw Bitter Blossom's effect on the metagame, they had to do something about it, and this is that something. The card gives just that extra boost that Pyroclasm should have, but at the same time doesn't require a mono-red player to splash green for Fire Spout. And, of course, I gotta mention this flavorful little piece, Voracious Dragon. Sure, Predator Dragon is just better, but damage equal to twice the number of goblins it devoured, that is flavorful. In green, everyone immediately saw the new Gaia's Might in Alara's Might for Zoo, and how it will tear the other tier 1 decks apart, but something that took just a little more examination was Noble Hierarch. Yeah, he's a rare, but 1 mana for a 0/1 taps for 3 colors and has Exalted to boot. Bank Control and Aggro just became that much more viable archetypes, especially with a 3rd turn Rafik, and in my campaign to tell everyone that Ban Charm is in fact better than Esper Charm. Yeah, I know Esper Charm kills Bitter Blossom. But that's not all that matters, right? Well, in multicolor, Wizards starts to show some multiplayer love in the form of Blood Tyrant. 5 counters when a player loses the game on a 5/5 flyer for 7 mana? Yes! However, they more correctly continue the lack of power but dorkishly huge mythic spells in the form of Conflux, which is in fact a word. Who knew? Next up is Counter Squall. Hopefully this will just be that simple little thing that gets added to fairies like Agony Warp did, as it replaces Negate, but won't alter the whole deck all over again. Not that I expect it to. Up next, we see what will hopefully influence the return of good old green-red mana ramp that we lost with the rotation of Wall of Roots into the north and Greater Gargadon, and add in some of the extra scred damage that we always needed. Next is the dorkishly large and dorkishly absurd casting cost Fusion Elemental. Just a vanilla 8/8, right? Well, yes, but it is also an elemental. Why is that important? I'll get to that at the end of the show. Not to mention the guys at Salve came up with the best flavor text ever. As once said by the all-powerful cartoon character made of awesome strong bad of HomestarRunner.com, Fusion Elemental is sort of like riding a pony, which probably doesn't sound very dangerous. Except that in this case, the pony is 300 feet tall, and covered in chainsaws. As you get on top of the pony, you have to ride an elevator, with 16 live cougars. Finally, for the multicolor cards, is the Bant card that just might push the archetype to tier 1. Guildspire Avenger. At first, the 2/2 with Exalted for 3 seems pretty weak, being prone to just about everything, including Executioner's Capstone Limited, Terror in Standard, Magma Spray, Incinerate, and whatnot. But then with the realization that it can kill any creature that's dealt damage to you this turn, seems slightly less underwhelming. Finally, we've got the most important cards in the set, the lands, of course. So here we've got 5 particularly awkward eyesores. A natural Ziggurat sticking out of the middle of nowhere on Vance, a majestic Bant Tower sticking out of a frozen Esper Sea, a carefully constructed and magnificently curved spire with some dead bodies poking out of the top on the crippling Grixis, some dead cities that should probably be burning in the lava pits of Jund, and a bunch of trees that should probably have set everything on fire in Naya. First is the least exciting Reliquary Tower. Sure, a spellbook sounds sort of fun, and yet... Well, good news is they get better. Next is Unstable Frontier. At first, one colorless in draft at uncommon rarity doesn't seem that useful, and while it will slow you down, it does A, get you to domain slightly faster as it allows you to manipulate any land to become any other land according to the matrix of your land base, and hey, maybe it will influence a new standard or extended zoo. Next is Rupture Spire. Now, this is where it gets exciting. Given 5-color control didn't have anything to do on turn 2, and while you will have something to do on turn 2 in sealed or draft, you will have the ability to, once again, get that last color just a little faster, and possibly 4 times as fast, or 4 times as many times, being at the common rarity. Fourth is the, surprisingly enough, not the land of lower rarity, but the one of higher rarity, Exotic Orchard. Exotic Orchard I expect to be splashable in that it acts as a budget reflecting pool, and can be quite a blast for just the heck of mirroring whatever your opponent's doing, but quite frankly, in about a fifth of the matches being between mono red and mono white, or you're playing a deck that has 2 colors, kind of awkward. Finally is that land for which I wanted to bring back our friend Fusion Elemental. That card is Ancient Ziggurat. Fact is adding mana that only produces creatures that bad? Well, normally, but when those creatures do everything that those non-creature spells could do anyway, why not go for 5-color aggro? Primal Beyond had to be good for something, right? Torment.deck, anyone? So until next time, this is the Card Professor tapped out for now, but we'll be back soon.